We, we're starting to record. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Hope everyone's doing well. There may be more people coming in as we get started, so I will allow them to come in or things like that. So what we'll also do, if you have any questions throughout the entirety of this talk, you can put it in the chat and we will address those at the end. This is being recorded and you will receive a recorded version of this personally from me tomorrow. So you'll have the access to that and any questions that get answered in case you have to leave during this time. Any questions that you've asked, we'll address those and you'll be able to see them in the recorded portion of this. So it is now 2 minutes after, and what we're going to go ahead and do is get ourselves started. So thank you for coming out. This is my first webinar under myadvantage.org. It is called Ambitions of a Writer, the 5 Psychologies of the Writer Mindset. So welcome aboard. I'm glad you all make it for this webinar. And I want to share with you in the chat the actual website that is sponsoring this program. It is myadvantage.org. It's a play on the word of my educational advantage. In fact, I spelled that wrong. But yes, it is myadvantage.org. So once again, that is the program that we have a host of courses and coaching that allows you to actually work on those intangible skills that we'll talk about a little bit tonight. So let's get us started. I am Dr. Derrick Robinson. I am a lead consultant for My Advantage Career and Consulting Services, and I primarily built this program and this practice to help pre-dissertation students master the intangible skills for success along their doctoral journey. However, I do work with doctoral students in the dissertation stage, but my focus has been to work with students before they get to the actual dissertation stage and have to go back to the drawing board to work on things that could have been prevented. I focus once again on what we call intangible skills, and these are just the micro skills and dispositions that many professors assume that students know, but never bother to teach. So that miscommunication alone creates an imbalance in the doctoral journey and also leads to much frustration for students in the doctoral journey. Our agenda for tonight is simply to cover the missions and goals of this particular talk. We'll then dive into the mindsets of prolific writers. And then we'll cover a little bit about who I am, my qualifications to do this work, and some of my motivations. The bulk of this will be focused on the 5 things that great writers do. And this work has come to me because I've had the opportunity to actually be around very prolific writers in the field. So these writers have anywhere from like 100 to 300 publications. And in these small talks, I've learned a lot from them and I learned a lot from what they do. And I try to put all that together for what I'm going to present to you tonight. So this is all part of another coaching program and course offering that I have called Mastering the Literature Review. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started with the mission. Our mission tonight is to give simple points to get you to think like a prolific writer. It is also to provide tips for mastering your body clock and energy levels so that you are achieving maximum production. I'm also going to talk to you about creating a system for gathering and organizing your research. We'll talk about big data and how you can use that to connect to your research problem and to your study of literature. And I want to give you a peek inside what we call focus mode that many prolific writers get into and manage to stay into. So we all experience focus mode, but something about prolific writers allow them to stay in focus mode for longer periods of time. So our goal, very simple. My goal is that you commit to conquering 3 things: frustration, procrastination, and negative self-talk. And these are the things that occur in the average writer. All of us experience frustration, procrastination, and negative self-talk when we endeavor to do our writings for papers, for research, when we enter into the dissertation stage. We all experience these things. And guess what? Prolific writers experience this as well. But what they learn to do is learn to cope with it, identify it, and move it to the side so that they have enough energy to actually get to their goals. So when we talked about prolific writers a little bit, giving you a bit of a taste, let's jump now into the actual mindset of a writer. So writers simply do this. They envision writing as a process from the idea to the actual end product. So they deal a lot with topic development. They also prepare for what we call focus mode, and they are energized for that work. Focus mode is an intention for them, whereas some of us, focus mode occurs accidentally. And when I dive into it, you will know you have experienced it before. Prolific writers create situations where focus mode is sustained. That's a big difference. The next part of this is they are supremely organized. And we'll talk about a system of gathering literature. And I want to add to that, compounding a research productivity model that you can actually use starting tonight. And also, the mindset of the writer includes seeing and creating the context for their work. And what I'm talking about primarily there is the use of what we call big data and how you can use that to provide context for the work that you're doing. And also, prolific writers have a routine for success. Whatever their routine is, they've created it and they work it for themselves. So that is their reading routine. And we're going to talk deeper about that. But first, who am I? My work has primarily been coaching and consulting doctoral students in the pre-dissertation stage and beyond on the idea of organizing their research, preparing literature reviews, and navigating the doctoral journey, particularly as a full-time worker. I have a modest 27 publications, 11 shared dissertations, and I've served as a doctoral program coordinator since 2016 when I entered into higher education after 22 years of being in the public school system. I've published research on academic professionals. Many of you are academic professionals, meaning you work and you go to school. That was what I did. So I pretty much did research. I've also facilitated writing workshops since 2018, and I've structured pre-doctoral orientations for incoming students to get them started on the right way. And that was where I came into teaching these intangible skills that I've learned as a doctoral student, but also as a professor, talking and learning from some of the greats that I've been honored to be a part of. So this work is not new to me. This work has been something that I've been able to do for a long period of time, and fortunate of being able to study from and learn from the greats and the most prolific writers in education who are continually listed as top professors in their field is part of my work. So that is me. And I've been able to actually have some pretty good success with that, given, the short time that I've been in higher education. So what is my motivation? My motivation for doing this work are these people right here. They are, of course, my mom and dad, little me, my son, my wife, my daughter right here, and once again, the family and extended family, my wife and my father-in-law. I wanted to create work that they could be proud of. I wanted to create work and do things that they would actually be able to point to and say, my dad, my husband, my son does this work and helps people. So, and fortunately, I've been able to do that for a few years. So these are my motivations for doing what I do. And after today, let's talk. Life after today. After today, you will walk away with one, a skill or strategy that you can implement today. You will walk away with a different way to think about writing if you have never thought about this before, but you'll walk away with a different thing to think about writing. And you'll walk away with a greater idea of organizing yourself and your work. You can take as much of this as you want, but you will incorporate this, and you should be able to incorporate this into your practice. This may be things you've never heard before said and put into this context, although some of it may sound familiar. So even if it does sound familiar, you have further confirmation that you're on the right path, and there's some things you can borrow and take. Always know a good idea when you steal it. So you can take these ideas and move this forward in what you're doing. So let's get back into the writer's mind. Inside the writer's mind, inside the work of prolific writers, we find 5 essential things. They all understand all aspects of writing. Writing is not something that you do the moment you sit down and put your fingers on a keyboard. I've seen people post commercials about having people write their literature review in 30 days. They're talking about putting your fingers to the keyboard and writing on a Word document. But the entire process is what prolific writers understand, and they perfect that entire process before they actually sit down and put their words onto a screen. They also have plans for writing multiple pieces. So what we'll talk about is this productivity model that you can start implementing today as far as your writing as a whole. Prolific writers also learn to align everything that they do to their research agenda. So a full understanding of the research agenda allows a prolific and engaged writing process for you that you can sustain for long periods of time. An additional thing is these writers leave nothing on the table. I had a professor who was also a very prolific writer who every paper that he wrote when he was in his doctoral program, he went back after he finished, and he turned every single paper in every single class into a publication. They leave literally nothing on the table. And also, prolific writers respect writing rhythms. They understand this idea of being, quote unquote, in the zone. And when I say in the zone, it is something that comes from athletes. When you talk to a Michael Jordan or a prolific athlete, a Tiger Woods, they mention this idea of being in the zone. And in the zone is a moment where the entire world slows down and they're still executing at regular speed. Michael Jordan describes it as the basketball goal being this big as a bucket and he can't miss. It's when you're writing, you're actually in that zone where you can actually go and write for 2 and 3 hours nonstop and then turn away from it and be like, whew, I can't believe I did that. Well, prolific writers respect that time and they plan for it. So our first topic development, our first mind shift for these prolific writings is topic development, understanding and how to really work a topic. When I talk with my clients, oftentimes I have them tell me, you know, I have this idea, but there's not a lot of research on my topic. And of course, I understand that because I've heard that as a professor. Many of my students say that, so we can sit down at the computer and together and then work through this. But when I work with my clients, I oftentimes we're remote, so I have to give them things to look at, think about before we can actually go deeper into their topic. So one of the things you should know and understand in topic development is understanding your topic is part of a larger topic, but your topic also has subtopics. And if you understand those subtopics and you're able to map them out, you can build your topic because your topic may be nuanced. And you're right, if you just put your topic into a search, you may not find a whole lot of things, but I have strategies to show you how you can do this. Another part of this is also developing what we call guiding questions. There's simply a few questions you have to ask yourself in the process of your topic development. First is, what is guiding my study? What is the central idea or ideas that guide my study? You can start from there as your main topics. Another concept that we teach people actually in the legal field and also in data analytics is the 5 whys. If you start asking yourself 5 whys, like a toddler will ask you why and why and why, 5 whys are enough to get you to the root of your topic. So once again, write your guiding literature study and also the 5 whys, and then end this with understanding what should we know at the end of your literature review. Your literature review should have a goal. What should we know at the very end of this so that we can move on and do greater things? So understanding those things, but I want to circle back to this idea of mapping. I web and map ideas. This is an example of a map for me. So this is some work that I was doing on online teaching. And as you see, I have questions to come out from all of these things. So from what it is I'm talking about, from variations of it, to understanding what is 21st century learning, teaching, how do you do it, why do it? And all of these are ideas that I work out in my map. And then it goes to questions. So it ends in questions that I can start asking to dive deeper into this particular topic. This is just a way or strategy or freehand writing to get your ideas from your mind onto something so that you can organize yourself later. This is messy, but you can still see that it's it's a way to idealize and develop my topic. So here's another example that I also work with my clients in understanding is you start with your overall topic. You can break that down into subtopics or just other co-topics. And then from there, you can break down further into third level topics. And sometimes I'll call those subtopics as well. So it's a subtopic of a subtopic. Once you have these down, you can begin to start the process of then searching for articles and literature on your topic or subtopics, and you can build you up to your topic that way if there's nothing directly expressed about your main topic. I also share with my students and clients a topic development template where you start with your main topic and you start breaking down topics associated with each topic and then go deeper. So now we got subtopics from the topic and synonyms that are associated with each subtopic. So once you understand both your topic, the subtopics, and the third level topics, synonyms are also a good way to do your search and develop your topic deeper. Give you an example. My primary work is in educational leadership. And oftentimes when I study school principals, if I put that search term in, I may get a certain number of hits and articles, a piece of literature. But also, if I put in school leaders, I can get a greater amount of hits and articles from that. So understanding the difference between school leader and a school principal is kind of like a synonym or otherwise known as. So if you understand the synonyms of your topic along with all of the other subtopics, there's no way you can walk away with very few amounts of literature. Just have to develop the topic a lot more. So another thing on topic development is gathering your materials. When you start thinking about your topic, you have to set up how you're going to organize and where you're going to organize those materials. Now, I recommend either a Google Drive or OneDrive because it gives you more control. I know some people use Zotero or EndNote, and I've dealt with students who ran into problems using Zotero and EndNote. If it works for you, let it work. But I think Google Drive or OneDrive has a greater amount of control in your hands and accessibility in your hands than these other programs that people use. So I suggest Google Drive. That's what I use primarily. I also create folders or subfolders within my topic folders. And even inside of my subfolders, I create 2 additional folders for my articles. One unread, which means all the articles that I have not read yet, then a read article, which represents the ones that I have completed. And I'll show you a visualization of that momentarily. Another thing that I find important, as you gather these articles and gather the research, create an ongoing Word document reference page so that you can begin to start controlling and keeping some of your data in your literature. The one thing you do not want to do is get to the end of your work and then start putting together your references. I had a student do that with her dissertation. So now you're talking about 240 pages worth of work that you have to go back through and put together your references. So if you have a ongoing reference page from the very beginning, you start on the topic. And as you grab articles, you'll be better off and more organized as you move forward. You don't have to use every single article on the reference page, but at least you have it. The next thing you need to do on your topic is consider who needs to be at the table in your work, who needs to be in the discussion. And what I mean by that is who are the seminal authors? Seminal authors are those people who have either coined the term that you're using, they have pretty much put together the definitive work that moves the field along. And they are the ones that everyone mentions when they mention a particular topic. You cannot talk about education leadership without talking about Kenneth Lakewood or Wayne Hoy. You cannot talk about culturally responsive teaching without talking about Gloria Lasson-Billings, Geneva Gay. You cannot talk about, all of these topics. You can't talk about urban education without talking about Dr. Chance Lewis and Dr. Rich Milner. All of those seminal authors who have put together definitive works have to be in your study. So you need to know the seminal authors of the field that you're in. The second thing you need to know are the now authors. Who's producing the definitive works right now? And by now, I mean recent, within the last 3 to 5 years. Who's putting that work together? So you have the seminal authors, you have the now authors, and know the key journals in your field. Where are you drawing from? So you have to know the key journals that are on your topic. I do a lot of work in educational leadership. I know that Education Administration Quarterly, EAQ, is a key journal. I can't write a leadership article and not draw something from there. So knowing those key journals, and then when you talk about the publication process, knowing who's on the editorial board, what they're producing, and then putting them in the talk as well. Knowing who's at the table is important for you in this work. So let's talk about those folders real quick. So inside your folder, if you're considering a particular topic, you create the initial folder with your topic name on it. And inside that folder, you create other subtopic folders. This is just an example of 4. You don't have to have 4. You could have more or less. But these are your subtopic folders that go inside of the general topic folder. And then inside of each one of these folders, you'll create 2 folders. One for articles that are unread, and then as you read them, you move them to the read folder so that you're seeing that process. And what this does is motivate you to keep going. As you see the list get shorter in the unread folder, you realize you're making progress and you won't want to stop. So once again, inside of each subtopic folder, an unread and a read, and that's part of that process that you keep going. Now, imagine this for every topic you work in. And then further, imagine this along the productivity chain of all of your work. So here's something I borrowed from a prolific writer who gave a whole lecture on this particular productivity process. He called it the conveyor belt or the hopper system. And essentially what it was is he had 5 folders, electronic folders, in his Google Drive. I have them in my Google Drive now. I also have them on my work board. So I have articles there on my work board. And the 5 folders are this: information gathering, blueprinting and outlining, analysis and writing, submission and revision. Now let's walk through that. When you first start your topic and you're gathering research and you're reading the research, you're in the information gathering stage. You're learning about the topic, you're getting deeper in on the topic, you're note-taking on the topic. A large part of your work is in here. Once you're done here, you move it over into blueprinting and outlining. You set up how the work will look. You create a detailed outline, even with your citations embedded within those outlines will be here. If you have to do an IRB, it's done in this stage, the blueprinting and outlining stage, because you have to give yourself time to get through all of that while you're putting everything else in order. Once you're done with this particular stage, you move that folder over into the analysis and writing stage. Now you're doing the work and you're writing, but you had to go through information gathering and blueprinting to get to analysis. So you're writing here, and once you've completed the writing process, which is the last leg of this before you submit, you find a journal that you submit to. You can know the journal at any point in time because you work with those key journals, but you submit to that journal, or you submit to your dissertation chair, however the process of your writing goes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, no one comes through this unscathed. So there will be revisions. So you have a folder. As soon as you get that feedback, you move that folder into revisions, and then you get to turn that around and submit it again. And you could go back and forth with this dance. Now, that's one article, one topic. The person who gave me this particular formula said that they keep no less than 4 topics in each hopper at all times. In fact, as soon as they submit, they start working on the next one in the hopper or bringing in new topics into the hopper. But this was a person who actually published 12 articles a year for many years. They just had that routine so together that they were so organized and moved things along so well that they were publishing up to 12 articles a year. And I don't know if you know this, but it sometimes can take a year or two to get an article published. So they had, imagine all the things they had going. They were literally a machine. But if you can do 2 articles or 2 topics in each hopper, you're on a good pace to be a prolific writer and producer of literature. So that's the productivity model based on this conveyor belt hopper system, understanding that you just go from information of outlining to analysis and writing to submitting to revisions and then back to submission, but you keep everything kind of going in this hopper as you move. Now let's talk about the second mind shift. The second mind shift is understanding energy levels and activities. You probably are familiar with this because you probably said or have heard people say, you know, I'm a morning person or I'm a late night person. What they're saying without necessarily telling you is that they understand their body clock and they understand their energy levels. What you have to be able to do, and what I've discovered in prolific writers, is they learn to match their energy level with their activities. So what are energy levels? There are essentially 2 types of energy levels, high energy and low energy. And a high energy, you align that with high energy activities. High energy activities include everything from intense reading to writing and analysis of your work. Then there are moments where you have low energy. Low energy should be aligned with low energy activities. Low energy activities can include preparing for your next high energy activity. It can be paraphrasing notes, gathering articles, updating your reference page, or outlining. Those are low energy activities in that they don't require you to do a whole lot and they don't require a lot of energy. You can do them kind of while you're relaxing a little bit. The important part is understanding how the energy aligns and how you sequence that energy. Because if you do this wrong, you can sacrifice quality and productivity in your work. So you align them right. For example, you can't do a low energy activity during high energy times because your energy is going to drain no matter what. So you reserve your high energy moments for high energy activities and likewise with your low energy activities. For me, it looks like this. I wake up probably about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and that's when I have my most energy. So I immediately go sit down and start working. And I can do this till about 9. And then from there, it starts going down. And after a while, there's nothing I can do to keep it from going down. So I have to take a break. And that break could be just taking a nap. It could be making calls. It could be being on Facebook. It could be anything else. But that's my low energy moments. I'm starting low energy moments, but I'm refueling for my low energy activities. And that starts anywhere from about 3 or 4 o'clock, peaks at about 6 o'clock, and then it's all downhill from there. And during this time is when I'm gathering, organizing, and note taking. But in high energy moments, that's when I'm reading, writing, and analyzing material. That's how my day looks. That's how my life looks. That's how my energy level and productivity looks. Now, the next part is an activity. You don't have to do this right now, but if you have some paper with you, this is a great time to sketch this out. I want you to plot a 24-hour timeline, circle, or whatever, however your mind envisions time. Sometimes mine is on a circle, sometimes mine is on a timeline. However you envision your timeline, your 24 hours, and write that down or sketch that out on paper. If you can do it right now, that's great. But you'll have this in the recording so you can go back to it and do it there. But I want you, then once you do that, to block out your average sleep times, because you can't do anything while you sleep, but sleep is important in order to gather that high energy moment if you're a morning person. So block out your sleep times. Next, block out meals and preparation, all of your grooming time. You can't do 2 things at once. So block that out. The next thing you do is you identify your high energy hours. And they can be in blocks, like, for example, 6 to 8 a.m., 12 to 3 p.m. I find on average, most of us have 3 hours where we can give a high energy burst. And then after those 3 hours, it's pretty much a wrap. you know, so identify those times, even if they're on your work hours, because there may be a way for you to kind of close a door, or if you're a teacher, use a planning period or things like that, where you can close the door and get at least get an hour during that time period. It was hard for me. I was a school administrator as I was going through um, the doctoral program and learning how to study in the day, and you know, taking a class period and just hovering in my office or going somewhere else so that no one could find me and do some work there. Um, Likewise, as you identify your high energy hours, also identify your low energy moments and do the same thing to plot them on that timeline. Now, here's the thing you want to think about. As you place them on the timeline, put a gap in between high and low energy times and reserve that for refueling. That could be anything from, you know, engaging social media, just taking a mental break, taking a nap, exercise, walk, go outside and get some air, whatever you do, as long as it allows you that period of time where you can actually refuel and be ready for the next energy moment. So those are things you want to be able to do when you're working on your energy levels. And to promise you, understanding your energy levels and being able to work during those levels and have them aligned well is going to be a great thing. I suggest you never do a energy activity that's out of sync. So whether you do low energy, you have to do low energy during low energy time. High energy activities are for high energy times, and don't mix them and don't combine them. All right, so the next mind shift we want to talk about is actual gathering and organizing literature. That is mind shift number 3, gathering and organizing literature. So with this, what I tell people, and I'm assuming that everyone here is in a program of some type, graduate school or what have you, is use your university library system for 2 good reasons. First good reason is you pay for it. And I found no better system than that. I've had a lot of success with Google Scholar. Some people use it and swear by it. I've never found it to be better than the university library system that I've always had access to. And then the second reason is it should have volumes of work in your discipline. And if it doesn't, depending on the size of the university, when it's part of a university interlibrary loan system, and generally those are good. They can get the article back to you within 24 to 48 hours. So you can utilize that, and that works very well. When you do this search, lean on peer-reviewed research articles. Generally in the Boolean search, they have somewhere where you can check that it's peer-reviewed or scholarly. Now, why would you do that? There's a lot of stuff out here on the internet that has no bearing on research, data, or validity. The peer review process just means that they've undergone a more rigorous process to be published. And it's oftentimes considered the gold standard in your field. And sometimes I've heard of people going through 5 years of the peer review process to get an article published. I think the longest I went through was 2 years. By the time it got published, I forgot what it was about. But utilize peer-reviewed journal articles. Also, use your topic development notes. This is the time for Mind Shift 1 topic development that you actually go in and start to organize and use these synonyms and subtopics to build articles and build research for your work. So utilize those topic development notes at this moment. Another thing to think about as you're going through this, because I've worked with students before who they found 4 articles on their topic, and we worked with their topic development notes. Now they have 167. Well, sometimes that's just as stressful. You know, you have 167 articles to comb through to figure out which ones you want to use and which ones you can't use. So as you go through articles to figure out which ones you want to select, read the abstract of the articles that you find. And as a general rule, a good abstract most of the time means a good article. It's not 100%, but generally if it's a good abstract, it's probably a good article. And when you look at abstracts, search for the purpose of the study, search for how the study was conducted, and search for the general or preliminary findings that they put in the abstract. Those are items that should be in a very good abstract. And then begin to ask yourself questions. Does this align with my topic? Because if it doesn't, it's not worth taking. Is it worth reading? You'll know by the tenor of that particular article if it's something that really speaks to your work. And also ask yourself, is it either current, meaning within the last 3 to 5 years, or seminal, meaning it's by a particular author who has to be in your work. So when we talked about who's in the discussion, who's at the table. So it's either got to be current or it's got to be seminal. So ask yourself those questions as you go through the abstract, as you look at these articles and you begin to pull them. Now, here's another trick to adding context to your work. Mind shift number 4 is using big data. Using big data allows us to create a picture and a context for the work. So what do we mean by big data? Generally, what we mean by big data are large statistical reports that are published quite often. Generally, they're governmental or they're private. For example, the US Census. Although they do a census count every 10 years, they produce a lot of other research and statistical reports quite often. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, I'm an economics person, so I use them a lot. And the condition of education is an annual data set or data report that comes out. Privately, they have the Pew Research Center, which has a ton of information. The National Council for Teacher Quality, I don't know if they're still producing reports like that or not. The Learning Policy Institute, and there are many others in your field of private big data that are credible, that put a lot of statistical reports out. Now, the common characteristics of these things are simple. They're large, tons of information. They're less specific about your work. You have to make meaning of them rather than them making the report just for your work. They generally tend to be long or longitudinal, which simply means they're generally over a period of a year or more in a time period. So they may have data going back for the last 25, 30 years in comparison. So if they're comparing 2019, 2020 data, they may compare it with 2010 or 2000 data, but they use it over periods of time. But they're great in the fact that they help you share the big picture of the work. Another thing you have to realize is they are often static. They represent a snapshot of a period of time. So if you got a 2017 report, it cannot speak to 2018, 19, 20, 21, or 22. So understand that when you're using the big data, you want the most recent, but also the one that speaks best to the work you're doing. Now, challenges with big data is data overload. When you look at these reports, they can be overwhelming, and you're going in to extract out little pieces of information that you need. So oftentimes those important details can be hidden. And sometimes you actually have to take the data and then do additional calculations. For example, if I want percentages and it doesn't give me the percentage, I got to take the population and then the sample of that particular group and then do math to get the percentage. So another challenge is ease of access. Sometimes you'll be looking for hours trying to find something that you want to have make the actual picture for you. So the ease of access can be difficult and challenging sometimes, but there are great opportunities that come with this. It allows you to put this work in a proper context. It allows you to integrate, if you're able to integrate big data from several disciplines to complete that picture, your picture is stronger. And also it helps you develop the critical problem of your study. Many people develop a problem of their study, particularly if you're doing dissertation work, but you're not necessarily putting together a critical problem. A critical problem is a problem that will not be solved if we just wait it out. So you want to be able to put all of that together. So here's a tip when reviewing big data. When you review big data, know that it comes from a trusted source. There's a lot of data sources out here that are kind of shaky. So know that it comes from a trusted source. Know how it aligns to your topic. because it should contain information that directly speaks to your topic to a degree. Notice the latest source. I pulled some great data one time and just knew I was going to use it until I saw that it was 2000 data, which means it's from the census of 2000, which means it's really from about 98, 99. The problem was it was 2020. So a lot can change in those 20 years. Make sure you extract the facts for what they are, even if you don't like it. But you have to stick to those facts the way they are. And then you have to learn how to turn those facts into truth claims. The purpose of big data is just to support your work. So you have to make a truth claim about your work that the data can uphold. And once again, if you can integrate facts from different sources, your work is stronger. So consider A plus B to equal C. When I work with my clients, I give them this as a document. Using big data document, we have the topic up here. And generally we work with 3 big data sources, so A, B, and C. And then we move from those data sources to take out the facts that you need. So for each one, for A, B, and C, you're just putting those facts here. And this column here is just for making those claims and connections. Just because you're given this fact, what do you now know? So here's an example of one. I know it's hard to see because I had to try to get it all in here, but I was looking at the economic impact of racial stratification in America. So I grabbed 3 sources. Generally, the Pew Research Center was my C, the racial gaps and key indicators, fairly straightforward. I looked at the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics on unemployment by race, fairly straightforward. This one was a reach. Family household income with and without children from the Department of Commerce. But I began to extract facts out. This is salary information. This is just statistics on unemployment over periods of time. And these are just those indicators. But all this information here helped me start creating truth claims. Now, what you may see here very well or not is at the end of each truth claim is an A, B, or C, or sometimes a combination. That means it came from this source, or this source, or a combination of them. Once again, if you can integrate these things, the better. So that is how you put that together, but it's a great tool for actually painting a story. And once again, big data is always good because people like pictures and numbers. So we can't give you pictures, but these numbers actually create the criticalness of your problem. So mind shift number 5, developing a reading routine. So when you think about this, developing your routine, what I've noticed from prolific writers is that they actually take the time, they make time for reading because they understand that's a major part of the process. So making time for reading means being intentional about your environment. So if you know the type of environment you need to do effective reading, you create that environment. If you're a quiet person and you like to have like silence around you, create an environment where you can do that. If you need some white noise in the background, create that environment where you can do that. If you're comfortable at Starbucks or Panera, go to Starbucks and Panera. But block out time according to your energy level to do this work. When I'm reading, I probably assume this 1 article equals 1 hour. So I block 2 to 3 hours daily. And that gives me an opportunity to do at least 2 articles, sometimes 3, never more than that. And another thing, set weekly goals rather than daily goals. When a person sets daily goals, the second you don't make it, you become defeated, and it leads to further procrastination. It leads to delaying things like that. So setting weekly goals allows you for more flexibility, and it allows you to have a slow day. You can't be a star every single day. Everyday excellence is a hard thing to deal with. And that, once again, can lead to a big letdown. So plan to do, if you're in the throes of research, 14 to 18 articles a week. That's an average of about 2 to maybe 2.4 articles a day. Try not to exceed 3 articles in one day, because if you remember, if your energy begins to kind of wane after 3 hours, then when you go to that 4th article, you're going to sacrifice the quality. So never sacrifice the quality because you're tired. If after that time you start noticing your energy go, let it go. Next, in developing these, understanding the general materials that you'll need. Save your articles as PDFs and save them in their proper folders. Also, to keep your reading pace, use materials like Speechify or Natural Reader. I'm a natural reader person, but I understand that Speechify is good as well. I think there may be a point where they charge you But learn to utilize those items. I'm going to put the links here. Um, you can try them as you need, but Natural Reader works good for me, and I think it will work good for you because it's based on the idea of speed reading. Now, one of the harmful things we learned when we were younger that we haven't let go of is what we call subvocalization. When we were first taught to read, we were taught to read and speak at the same time. So that habit never really leaves most of us. So you can think now sometimes when you're reading, you may be silently sounding out the words as you're reading. Well, what's the problem with that? The problem is your eyes move faster than your mouth. So now you're in a disequilibrium moment where your eyes are seeing more than your mouth is moving, and then you're forced to slow down. That can be frustrating. It can be a strain on the eyes. And because of subvocalization, it leads me to being on Facebook. I just, gonna be honest with you, when I get there and I get frustrated with that, I go to Facebook. So using Natural Reader, I can bump the speed up to +5. So now it's going like 800 words a minute. And then I can keep up and keep pace. And what I do is I work from 2 different screens. So I have the real PDF on one screen, the Natural Reader on the other screen, because I can import the PDF there. And I can do that and then highlight what I need, but I'm keeping up with the reading. Understanding also that reading is a 2-step process. Your first goal in this reading, particularly for academic reading, is just to extract the information. You can do note-taking and paraphrasing in step 2 during your low energy moments, but plan to read according to those energy levels. So high energy, reading and highlighting. Low energy, go back to that article, note take, paraphrase. Note taking and paraphrasing, particularly paraphrasing, will keep you out of the plagiarism problem. So make sure you're doing paraphrasing rather than writing down verbatim the whole process. But these are excellent ways in order for you to speed the reading process up so that it matches your energy level and it enables you to get the intense reading done in a good amount of time. And I actually have other strategies that help you to know how to read journal articles, because you don't have to read every journal article word for word verbatim. There are times you can use skimming for the right moments. So understanding that is part of the writing process. So when you hear people talk about, you can write a whole literature review for your dissertation in 30 days. They're talking about this right here, just the writing. But the writing process encompasses everything from gathering literature, organizing that literature, reading the literature, and analyzing the literature, then finally putting your fingers to the keyboard to write. I wrote my literature review for my dissertation in 2 weeks. But truthfully, that was a lie. I did this part in 2 weeks, and it was 74 pages the first go around. It got reduced to 67. But I spent 5 to 6 months going through all of these processes. My professor made us have to go and get 100 articles and analyze those. And by the time I finished, it was maybe 100 or more. But I went through all of this for 6 months prior to those 2 weeks. So by the time I sat down, I was organized, I was ready to go, and I had it all together. But that is that process. The writing process is more than just this. If you notice, the actual writing is the last thing you will do. So keep that in mind as you are moving through this process. But don't get caught up in people trying to convince you that you can do this in a month. What they really mean, and they're sincere, what they really mean is that the actual sitting down to write can take 30 days, because the average lit review is anywhere from 30 to 60 pages. They'll get you on a routine of writing 2 to 3 pages a day. And with that, in 30 days, you can get there. But there's a whole lot you got to do before that. So keep all of that in mind. So what's next? What's next is very simple. You got 2 choices. You can return back to normal. It's quite possible you lose nothing, you gain nothing, and you can go back to the routine that you already have. Or you can take this moment to invest in yourself. Schedule a consultation, see if I can help, see what I can do to help the situation, and possibly start a game-changing process for you in this writing literature reviews, whether it's for your dissertation, whether it's for research you want to do, whether you want to publish prior to that dissertation work, invest in yourself. Start this process. I have right now a 90-day coaching program for mastering literature reviews, where we work on those energy levels. We actually work on pre-writing strategies. I have a whole plan for organizing and developing literature, where we actually write a actual literature review, whether it's for a paper to submit for a journal or whether it's writing literature review for your dissertation. I have this 90-day coaching program and a course to go along with it. Also have other selections. If you wish, I offer what we call the Academic Professional Survivor Guide. If you're working and you are in school, it's a two-step process. I understand it, I went through it, and I help you get through all of those things. In addition to that, we're ready to go into the job market. If you want to go into higher education, I'm somewhat of an industry insider. I've been to 3 universities right now. So apparently I know how to get the jobs, but I can help you prepare this job cycle, develop CV statements, your whole social media package, and as well as your life outside of higher ed in your business enterprise. I can help you do all of those things. In addition to that, if you're doing qualitative work, which happens to be my specialty, although I can do quant, I have a mini course on qualitative design made easy. We talk about the approaches and different designs and integrating those designs and things like that. In addition to that, if you ever want to do surveys or interview protocols, I have a mini course that works for that. I can work with you on testing your surveys and interviews. It should always be something that's intentional. You just can't throw together 10 questions and call it an interview. So you have to think about all of that together. In addition to that, of course, working throughout these years, APA has been a stickler of mine. So I've developed a mini course on APA. Once again, it's a 6-part course that allows you to go through some of the most commonly understood issues with APA. So with that said, let's move forward. I've shared a link in the chat, but you have this here. If you wish to ever set up a consultation for free, just to kind of bounce the ideas off and see where we could possibly work together, I'm available for you. At this point, if there are any, I don't see any questions in the chat. So if there are any questions, this will be a great time to ask, and I'll answer whatever I can. I know I promised this will be about an hour, so I'm kind of wrapping up on that time. Thank you also, Tamara. Great seeing you as well. Appreciate it. Glad you came through. Good. I can now open it up if you wish to talk. And I'll unshare. So if for any reason you have any questions or want to talk at another time, you have my information, you know how to schedule a consultation. You can always email me. This will be recorded and then sent out to you all, so you can have it to kind of pause, think, rewind if you need to. Tawanda, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. I very appreciate that. But I enjoyed having you all, and I'll release you to the rest of your night, and you'll have access to this as we move forward. But thank you all. I look forward to talking to you in the future. And if you ever need me, just let me know. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night now.